The phone call came on the evening I found out I'd made partner at my law firm, while champagne waited in the fridge and the promotion letter sat proudly on my kitchen island. My phone lit up with my father's name, a name I hadn't seen in weeks despite my texts about my upcoming partnership decision. William. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. My father George's voice was smooth as aged whiskey. I need you in Palm Beach this weekend for Vanessa's birthday celebration. The kitchen suddenly felt cold beneath my feet. For months I'd been telling him about this partnership announcement, about the years of 80-hour weeks and sacrificed relationships that led to this moment, and he was calling about his girlfriend's birthday party. Dad, I just made partner. The announcement party is this weekend. I can't miss it. My voice sounded strained, foreign to my own ears. His tone hardened like concrete setting. The partners will understand. Vanessa's turning 40, and she's been planning this yacht party for months. If you don't come, I'll have to reconsider that trust fund of yours coming due next month. A strange numbness spread through my chest as 32 years of conditional love crystallized in that single cruel ultimatum. The weight of my father's expectations, a burden I'd carried since childhood, suddenly felt irrelevant compared to the career milestone I'd just achieved. This partnership means everything to me, Dad. Family loyalty is a two-way street, Catherine, he replied, ice-coating each syllable. If you don't show up, don't expect our support anymore. My name is Catherine, I'm 32 and the youngest female partner at Maxwell & Burke Law. This is the story of how I finally chose the life that mattered. For years before my partnership, I'd noticed the growing distance. My father's criticism of my career choice, my modest condo, my decision to work in corporate law instead of joining his real estate empire that was nothing like Vanessa's flashy Miami lifestyle. His girlfriend had become the center of his universe since my mother's death from cancer 7 years ago. At first, I'd been happy he'd found companionship after watching him grieve so deeply. But Vanessa, just 15 years my senior, had slowly transformed from a kind presence to the gatekeeper of my relationship with my only living parent. I'd been trying anyway, scheduling monthly dinners, sending thoughtful gifts, showing up at every family function, while ignoring how my father would constantly compare my practical lifestyle to Vanessa's glamorous one. Vanessa knows how to live a little, he'd say, eyeing my sensible pantsuit at Sunday brunch. You should let her take you shopping sometime. I'd endured the subtle digs at my appearance, my work ethic, my lack of a suitable relationship. No man wants a woman who works all the time, Vanessa would offer while my father nodded in agreement. I'd smile through the pain, explaining that building my career was my priority right now, that the right partner would value my ambition. I balanced it all, the grief of losing my mother, the pressure of being a woman in a male-dominated field, my father's conditional support, because everyone needs family, until the day the partnership vote happened, and my name was announced as the newest and youngest female partner in the firm's 80-year history. The previous 48 hours had passed in a blur of congratulatory emails and champagne toasts with colleagues. My best friend, Sophia, had rushed over with flowers and expensive bourbon. "I'm so proud of you, Kat," she'd whispered, hugging me tightly. "Your mom would be too." I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak as I imagined my mother's face if she could see this moment. I'd sent my father 3 texts about the partnership committee's decision, each one marked read but unanswered, as I prepared for the official announcement party. By the time he called with his ultimatum about Vanessa's birthday, I'd already bought a new dress for the partnership celebration, already practiced my acceptance speech in the mirror, already invited the handful of close friends who'd supported me through the grueling 7 years of climbing the firm's ladder. Standing in my kitchen, his words hanging between us, something inside me finally broke free. 32 years of seeking approval, of making excuses for the coldness, of believing I was somehow defective for choosing my own path. "I choose my career," I said, my voice suddenly calm and unshakable. "Goodbye." I hung up, set my phone to Do Not Disturb, and poured myself that waiting glass of champagne, a strange peace settling over me despite the storm I knew would follow. My hand trembled slightly as I raised the glass in a silent toast to myself. To the years of work, to the boundaries I should have set long ago. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The doubt crept in later that night as I lay awake, staring at my ceiling. My trust fund represented not just money but security, the safety net that had allowed me to take risks in my career, to choose challenging cases over safe ones. Would my decision hurt me long-term? The weight of standing alone felt suddenly heavier, more real in the dark quiet of my bedroom. My phone had collected a flurry of notifications by morning. Vanessa, this time. Your father is heartbroken. It's just a weekend trip. Send a gift at least. I stared at the screen, stunned. My partnership, the culmination of years of sacrifice and hard work, reduced to an inconvenient scheduling conflict. More texts followed from my father's friends, my cousins, all focused on Vanessa's celebration, none congratulating me on my professional achievement. Their priorities cut deeper than my father's threat, revealing a painful truth I'd been avoiding. Their version of family was about appearances, not love or support. As evening fell, I was reviewing case files for Monday when Sophia called. "How are you holding up?" she asked, her voice warm with concern. I told her about my father's ultimatum, his threat to withhold my trust fund. "I'm okay," I said, surprised to find I meant it. "Actually, I feel lighter somehow." "You know what this means, right?" Sophia said. "You're finally free to live your life without his approval hanging over you." She was right. For years, I'd made choices with one eye always on my father's reaction. Now that weight was gone, leaving room for something new, authentic pride in my own accomplishments. The partnership announcement party was everything I'd dreamed. Standing in front of colleagues and mentors who had challenged and supported me, I felt a surge of confidence I'd never experienced before. 7 years ago, I walked through these doors as an associate with big dreams and bigger student loans. I began earning appreciative laughter. Today, I stand before you not just as a partner, but as someone who has found her true north. As I spoke about the firm's future, my vision for my practice area, I noticed several senior partners nodding with approval. This was my real family, the people who recognized my value without trying to change me. The celebration continued late into the night. I was accepting congratulations from Judge Wilson, a formidable presence in the courtroom and a longtime client of the firm, when my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We need to talk. Vanessa's party is ruined without you. Family should come first." I slipped my phone back into my clutch without responding. For the first time in my adult life, I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by people who celebrated my success rather than diminished it. My father's disapproval, once so devastating, now felt distant and irrelevant. Monday morning brought a flurry of emails from new clients eager to work with the firm's youngest partner. I was reviewing proposals when my assistant announced unexpected visitors. My father and Vanessa stood in my office doorway, uninvited and unwelcome, disrupting the sanctuary of my professional space. "We've been trying to reach you," my father said, his tone sharp. "Vanessa's birthday weekend was ruined because of you." I noticed several associates glancing curiously toward my office, and my face burned with embarrassment. This was exactly the scene I'd been dreading, my personal and professional lives colliding in the worst possible way. "Let's talk in the conference room," I said calmly, leading them down the hallway to a private space. Once the door closed behind us, my father unleashed his anger. "Your absence embarrassed us. All our friends were asking where you were. You could have come for a day." Vanessa chimed in, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. "We postponed the yacht departure because we thought you might show up late. Everyone was so disappointed." I stared, incredulous. "I made partner after 7 years of working toward this goal and you're upset about a party schedule?" My voice stayed steady, fueled by a new strength. I was here, celebrating the biggest achievement of my career. That's where I belonged. My father scoffed. "It's just a job, Catherine. Family comes first." I stepped closer, holding his gaze. "Is that why you threatened my trust fund? Because family comes first?" Quote, for the first time, I confronted him without flinching. "You've made it clear that your approval is conditional on me living the life you want, not the one I've chosen." He bristled but said nothing, his silence confirming everything. Vanessa touched his arm possessively. "Your father only wants what's best for you, Catherine. We worry about you working so hard, being all alone. The condescension in her voice ignited something fierce within me. I'm not alone. I have people who support my choices without conditions. That's what real family does. My father's expression hardened. If that's how you feel, I'll have my attorney contact you about the trust. Don't expect anything else from us. I nodded, strangely calm. I never expected this from you, Dad. Not since Mom died. But I'm not surprised anymore. The confrontation marked the beginning of our new reality. My father followed through on his threat, instructing his attorneys to review the terms of my trust fund, looking for loopholes to deny me the inheritance my mother had established before her death. The loss of that financial safety net terrified me at first. But something remarkable happened in its place. I discovered strengths I never knew I possessed. My billing rate increased with my new partnership. New clients sought me out specifically. My modest investment portfolio, started years ago with careful savings, began to grow more substantially. The senior partners, impressed with my handling of a difficult merger, assigned me to lead a high-profile case. My colleague Marcus, who had been competing with me for years, stopped by my office with a rare, genuine smile. Your argument in the Taylor deposition was brilliant, he admitted. I've been taking notes. We discovered that real family isn't always blood. It's the mentors who challenge you to grow, the friends who show up without conditions, the colleagues who recognize your value without trying to change you. My career became my focus, each successful case building my reputation and my confidence. 3 months after our confrontation, I received a certified letter from my father's attorney. Inside was a formal document confirming the dissolution of my trust fund, citing an obscure clause about family loyalty that I suspected had been recently added. The funds, far smaller than promised, would remain under my father's control indefinitely. The accompanying note was coldly businesslike. This concludes our financial relationship unless circumstances change significantly. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt oddly liberated. That evening, I called Sophia, explaining what had happened with my father. Are you okay? She asked, her concern evident even through the phone. I considered the question, surprised by my answer. Yes, actually. I'm sad he doesn't understand what matters to me, but I'm not sad about choosing myself. She chuckled softly. Your mother would be so proud of you right now, Kat. She always said you were the strongest person she knew. The mention of my mother brought unexpected tears. She had been my greatest champion, the one who encouraged my interest in law when I was just a teenager devouring courtroom dramas. Her trust fund had been her way of ensuring I could pursue my dreams without financial pressure. Now I would have to do it on my own, exactly as she had done before meeting my father. I took what little remained of my financial cushion and did something my father would have considered irresponsible. I hired a financial advisor and created a comprehensive investment strategy for my new partner income. I leased a slightly larger condo with an office space that allowed me to work from home when needed. I joined the board of a legal aid nonprofit that provided services to domestic violence survivors. Within a year, my practice area had expanded to include several Fortune 500 clients. My name appeared in legal times as one to watch in corporate law. At a bar association dinner, I was seated next to Judge Wilson, who had become something of a mentor. I heard about the situation with your father, she said quietly between courses. Family complications can be the hardest ones to navigate. I nodded, appreciating her discretion. It's been a difficult transition, but ultimately the right one. She studied me thoughtfully. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the one we're born into. My own father didn't speak to me for a decade after I went to law school instead of running the family business. The revelation surprised me. Judge Wilson had always seemed untouchable, above such ordinary family drama. How did you reconcile? Quote, I asked, genuinely curious. Her smile was bittersweet. We didn't, not really. He came to my investiture ceremony when I was appointed to the bench, sat in the back row, and left without speaking to me. But he was there. Sometimes that's all the reconciliation you get. Her words stayed with me, a reminder that some relationships can't be fixed with an apology or a grand gesture. Sometimes the best outcome is a distant peace, an acceptance of differences that can't be bridged. 6 months later, my assistant interrupted a client meeting with an urgent message. "Your father's assistant called. He's in the hospital." The world tilted momentarily as fear replaced anger. Despite everything, he was still my father, my only living parent. I excused myself from the meeting and called immediately, learning he'd suffered a minor heart attack. "He's stable," his assistant assured me. "But asking for you." The hospital was across town, a 30-minute drive in midday traffic. I arrived to find Vanessa pacing the waiting room, her perfect makeup streaked with tears. "Thank God you're here," she said, embracing me with unexpected warmth. "He's been asking for you." Something in her manner felt different. The usual competition replaced by genuine worry. The doctor updated us together, explaining that while the heart attack had been relatively mild, it revealed blockages that would require surgery. "He's asking to see you alone," Vanessa said, gesturing toward his room. "Go ahead. I need coffee anyway." My father looked smaller somehow in the hospital bed, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen him. His eyes lit up when I entered, then clouded with uncertainty. "Catherine," he said softly, "you came." I moved to his bedside, professional mask firmly in place. "Of course I came. You're still my father." He reached for my hand, his grip weaker than I remembered. "I've been terrible to you," he admitted, his voice breaking. "Your mother would be so disappointed in me." The mention of my mother cracked something open inside me. "Why, Dad? Why did you push me away when I needed you most?" The question had lived inside me for 7 years, since the day we buried my mother, and he seemed to bury his relationship with me alongside her. He looked away, shame evident in his profile. "You remind me so much of her, your determination, your intelligence. After she died, seeing you was like seeing everything I'd lost." Tears filled my eyes as pieces clicked into place. "So you replaced her with someone completely different?" He nodded slowly. "Vanessa never knew your mother, never compares me to the man I was with her. It was easier." The honesty was startling after years of pretense. "But I've been unfair to you. Using your inheritance to control you was unforgivable." I sat beside his bed for hours, conversations flowing that should have happened years earlier. He spoke of his grief, his fear of being alone, his regret at missing my partnership announcement. I shared my hurt, my anger, my eventual acceptance that our relationship might never be what I hoped for. "I want to fix this," he said finally. "I don't know if we can, but I want to try." I nodded, cautious but willing. "I'd like that too. But things have to change, Dad. I won't be manipulated or controlled, not even with love." The weeks following my father's heart attack were a delicate dance of tentative reconciliation. He was released from the hospital with strict orders to reduce stress and change his diet, a regimen that seemed to humble him in unexpected ways. I found myself driving to his Palm Beach estate twice a week, helping him organize his medication schedule, and accompanying him on the short walks his doctor prescribed. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. "You don't have to do this, Catherine," he said one evening as we walked along the manicured path that wound through his property, the setting sun casting long shadows across the lawn. "I know you have important work." The acknowledgement of my career, spoken without the usual dismissive tone, felt like a small victory. "I want to be here," I replied simply, surprised to find I meant it. Despite years of hurt, watching my strong, commanding father struggle with his mortality had awakened something protective in me. We walked in companionable silence for a while, the rhythm of our footsteps matching naturally. "I've been thinking about what happened," he said finally, stopping to rest on a stone bench overlooking the infinity pool. "With your trust fund, with everything." I tensed, waiting for justifications or excuses. Instead, he looked directly at me, his eyes clear and regretful. "I was wrong, Catherine. Completely wrong." The admission hung in the air between us, weightier than I'd expected. For so long, I'd imagined this moment, my father acknowledging his mistake, would feel triumphant. Instead, it felt bittersweet, a recognition of how much time we'd wasted. "I've instructed my attorneys to reinstate your trust," he continued. "No conditions, no strings attached. It was your mother's wish, and I had no right to interfere." I sat beside him, watching a pair of cardinals flit between the palm trees. "Thank you," I said carefully, "but that's not why I'm here." He nodded, understanding passing between us. "I know. You're here because you're a better person than I deserve." The words were spoken softly, almost to himself. I reached for his hand, surprising us both. "I'm here because you're my father. And because Mom would want us to try." The mention of my mother no longer felt like a weapon between us, but a bridge. "She would have been so proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Making partner. Standing your ground, even against me." Something loosened in my chest at his words, a tightness I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for years. Back at the house, Vanessa was waiting with dinner prepared by the private chef, heart-healthy salmon and vegetables that my father eyed with resignation. I'd expected awkwardness between us, but Vanessa surprised me by being almost deferential, as if my stock had risen in her estimation. "Your father told me about reinstating your trust," she said when he excused himself to take a call. Her tone was carefully neutral, but I detected something new. Respect, perhaps, or wariness. "That's between him and me," I replied, maintaining professional distance. She toyed with her wine glass, perfectly manicured nails tapping against the crystal. "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, Catherine. But your father needs you in his life." "I see that now." The admission seemed to cost her something, and I found myself reassessing the woman I'd dismissed as merely a gold digger. "He needs both of us," I said finally. "In different ways." She nodded, a silent truce forming between us. Not friendship, certainly, but perhaps a mutual understanding that the man we both cared for deserved better than our continued animosity. As the weeks passed, my father's health improved alongside our relationship. Our conversations, once minefields of potential conflict, began to flow more naturally. He asked about my cases, offering insights from his years of business experience that were actually useful. I inquired about his real estate projects without the defensive edge that had characterized our past interactions. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. One evening, as I prepared to leave after dinner, he handed me a small box. "This was your mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a platinum pendant watch on a delicate chain. "She wore it to every important court appearance. Said it gave her confidence to know exactly how much time she had." I recognized it immediately from childhood memories, my mother checking it discreetly during tense negotiations, the quiet authority it lent her. "She wanted you to have it when you made partner," he continued. "I should have given it to you at your celebration." The gift was more than jewelry. It was acknowledgement, acceptance of the path I'd chosen. I fastened it around my neck, the weight of it comforting against my collarbone. "Thank you," I whispered, emotion making further words impossible. He nodded, understanding passing between us. That night, driving back to my condo, I felt a shift. Not a complete healing, but the beginning of something new. The pendant watch rested against my skin, a tangible connection to my mother and a tentative bridge to my father. The legal world is small, especially at its highest levels, and news travels quickly. By the time I returned to the office Monday morning, rumors of my reconciliation with my father and the reinstated trust had already circulated. Marcus stopped by my office, his interest poorly disguised as casual conversation. "Heard you're back in the family fold," he said, leaning against my doorframe with practiced nonchalance. "Congratulations on the windfall." The insinuation that my renewed relationship with my father was financially motivated stung more than I expected. "My personal life isn't firm business, Marcus," I replied coolly, "but thank you for your concern." His smirk told me everything I needed to know. In his eyes, and perhaps others, my professional accomplishments would now be tainted by assumptions about family connections and wealth. Judge Wilson, with her usual perceptiveness, addressed it directly when we met for our monthly mentoring lunch. People are talking, she said, buttering her roll with precise movements, about your father's trust and what it might mean for your career. I sighed, frustration bubbling up. They think I've sold out. That I reconciled for the money. She studied me thoughtfully, her decades of judicial experience evident in her measured assessment. Did you? No, I answered without hesitation. The trust was his gesture, not my goal. I'd have tried to fix things either way. She nodded, seemingly satisfied. Then let them talk. Your work will speak for itself. Her confidence in me was a balm against the whispers and sidelong glances. The truth was more complicated than anyone at the firm could understand. Yes, the trust represented financial security, a significant one, but it also represented my mother's legacy, her belief in my potential. My father's reinstating it wasn't just about money, it was about honoring her wishes and acknowledging my right to choose my own path. As spring turned to summer, my professional and personal lives settled into a new rhythm. I won a significant case for a technology client, earning praise from the senior partners and silencing some of the whispers about my supposed reliance on family connections. My father continued his recovery, our relationship growing stronger with each passing week. Vanessa remained a complex figure in our dynamic. Sometimes I glimpsed the calculating woman who had first inserted herself between my father and me, her possessive touches, her subtle manipulations. Other times I saw genuine affection in the way she anticipated his needs or remembered small details about his preferences. She's different with you now, Sophia observed after meeting them for dinner one evening. Less competitive. We were walking along the waterfront, the warm night air carrying the scent of jasmine. She knows I'm not a threat anymore, I replied, watching the lights of boats bobbing in the marina. We've established boundaries. Sophia linked her arm through mine, her presence steadying as it had been throughout the turmoil of the past year. Are you happy, Kat? With how things are working out? The question gave me pause. Happiness had never been my primary goal. Success, recognition, financial security had always taken precedence. I'm content, I said finally, more at peace than I've been in years. It was true. The constant tension of trying to please my father while remaining true to myself had drained energy I hadn't realized I was expending. Now, that energy was channeled into my work, my friendships, my growing involvement with the legal aid nonprofit. The first real test of our new relationship came when my father invited me to join him and Vanessa for a weekend on his yacht, the very type of excursion I would have dreaded months earlier. It's just the three of us, he assured me over the phone. No pressure, no performances, just family time. Family. The word no longer carried the weight of obligation and disappointment it once had. I'd like that, I said, surprising myself with my sincerity. The weekend was not without awkward moments. Vanessa's occasional pointed comments about my workaholic tendencies, my father's instinctive attempts to control the itinerary, but underlying it all was a genuine effort at connection. On the second evening, as we sipped cocktails on the deck watching the sunset paint the sky in dramatic streaks of orange and purple, my father cleared his throat. I've been meaning to tell you something, he said, setting down his non-alcoholic beverage. I'm changing my will. The statement hung in the air, loaded with potential conflict. Vanessa stiffened beside him, her knuckles whitening around her glass. The bulk of my estate will be divided equally between you and Vanessa, he continued, his tone deliberately neutral. But I'm setting aside a significant portion for that legal aid organization you're involved with. The announcement stunned me. My father had always been generous with his wealth, but primarily in ways that enhanced his social standing or business connections. This was different, a genuine acknowledgement of something I valued. The Catherine Williams Legal Defense Fund, he added. In honor of both you and your mother. Tears pricked behind my eyes as the depth of the gesture registered. Not just money, but recognition of the values that drove me. The legacy of my mother's belief in justice, the validation of my chosen path. Dad, words failed me momentarily. That's incredible, thank you. Vanessa's reaction was carefully controlled, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. What a lovely tribute, she said, her voice honeyed but tight. Catherine must be so touched. The subtext was clear. This new division of assets was not what she had anticipated. Later that night, unable to sleep in the gently rocking stateroom, I made my way back to the deck. The night was clear, stars scattered across the velvet sky. The water, a dark mirror reflecting their light. I was surprised to find Vanessa already there, a glass of wine in hand, her silhouette sharp against the moonlight. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked, maintaining the polite facade we'd established. She turned, and in the dim light I saw a calculation in her eyes that sent a chill through me despite the warm night air. "Your father is very generous," she said, her voice carefully modulated. "Very sentimental since his heart attack." The emphasis made her meaning clear. She viewed his recent decisions as emotional rather than rational. "He thinks very highly of you now." I moved to stand beside her at the railing, keeping a careful distance. "We've both made efforts to understand each other better," I replied neutrally. She sipped her wine, eyes fixed on the horizon. "You know, when I first met your father, he rarely mentioned you. Just his brilliant, difficult daughter, who chose her mother's world over his." The revelation stung, but I kept my expression neutral. "And now?" She turned to face me fully, artifice dropping away like a discarded mask. "Now you're everywhere? In his conversations, his decisions, his will." The last word carried particular weight, and suddenly the pieces clicked into place. "This isn't about family or reconciliation for you," I said quietly. "It's about inheritance." Her laugh was brittle, sharp-edged. "Don't be naive, Catherine. It's always about inheritance when it comes to family businesses. Your father's empire is worth hundreds of millions. I've spent 5 years helping him build it further, playing the perfect partner, and now you waltz back in because of a heart scare and claim your share." The naked ambition in her voice confirmed suspicions I'd tried to dismiss. "I didn't come back for his money," I said firmly. "I came back because he's my father, and life is too short for estrangement." She studied me with narrow eyes, clearly weighing the truth of my words. "Perhaps," she conceded finally, "but your trust fund certainly helps ease the reconciliation, doesn't it?" The insinuation echoed Marcus's earlier comment, hitting a nerve I thought I'd cauterized. Before I could respond, footsteps sounded on the deck stairs, and my father appeared, robe belted loosely around his waist. "Everything okay out here?" he asked, looking between us with concern. Vanessa's demeanor transformed instantly, her voice softening to the affectionate tone she reserved for him. "Just girl talk, darling." Catherine was telling me about her big case. I met her gaze steadily, a silent acknowledgement passing between us. We both knew what had just transpired. Battle lines drawn, motivations exposed. But neither of us would upset my father's fragile health with open conflict. "Just getting some air," I confirmed. "The stars are beautiful tonight." He joined us at the railing, one arm around each of us in a gesture that would have seemed contrived months earlier but now felt genuine, at least from his side. "My 2 favorite women," he said contentedly. "I never thought I'd have this again. Family harmony." Over his shoulder, Vanessa's eyes met mine, her message clear. "This isn't over." I held her gaze without flinching, equally determined. The trust fund my father had reinstated was substantial, but it was nothing compared to what Vanessa stood to lose if his new estate plans went forward. The revelation of Vanessa's true motivations should have disturbed me more than it did. Instead, it clarified things. My father's girlfriend had never seen me as family or even as a person worthy of connection. I was simply an obstacle to her financial security, a competitor for resources she believed she had earned through years of calculated devotion. The remainder of the weekend passed in a strange simulacrum of harmony, Vanessa and I performing civility for my father's benefit while acutely aware of the undercurrents between us. When we docked on Sunday evening, I was relieved to return to the straightforward challenges of my legal practice, where conflicts were governed by clear rules and ethical guidelines. Monday morning brought a new case to my desk, a complex corporate merger with international implications. I threw myself into the work, grateful for the intellectual demands that left little room for dwelling on personal complications. Judge Wilson's words echoed in my mind. "Your work will speak for itself." By midweek, I'd developed a comprehensive strategy for the merger case, and was deep in research when my assistant interrupted. "Mr. Peterson from your father's office is on line 1, she said. "Says it's urgent." Alarms spiked through me. Was it my father's health again? "William, what's happened?" I asked, dispensing with pleasantries. My father's longtime assistant's voice was strained. "It's not your father, Catherine. It's about some financial irregularities we've discovered. I think you should come to the office as soon as possible." I arrived at my father's office within the hour, my legal instincts on high alert. The building was a testament to his success. 30 stories of gleaming glass and steel in downtown Miami, the top floor reserved for his private office with its panoramic view of Biscayne Bay. William met me at the elevator, his usually composed demeanor visibly strained. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you." "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said, leading me not to my father's office but to a smaller conference room. "Your father doesn't know you're here yet." The statement raised immediate red flags. "What exactly are we dealing with, William?" I asked, slipping automatically into my professional persona. He closed the door before answering. "For the past 18 months, someone has been systematically diverting funds from several of your father's development projects. Small amounts from each, carefully disguised in the accounting, but cumulatively, it's over $2 million. My mind raced through possibilities, none of them pleasant. Who has access to those accounts? Though I already suspected the answer, William confirmed my fears. Senior management, your father, and... He hesitated. "Miss Chambers has been added as a signatory on most accounts within the past year." Vanessa. The yacht conversation replayed in my mind, her naked ambition, her resentment of my reappearance in my father's life. "Have you told my father your suspicions?" William shook his head. "That's why I called you first. His health is still fragile, and he's quite devoted to Miss Chambers." The understatement would have been amusing in any other context. My father had restructured his entire life around Vanessa, given her unprecedented access to his business and personal affairs. Confronting him with evidence of her betrayal would be devastating, potentially dangerous given his cardiac condition. "Show me what you found," I said, removing my suit jacket and draping it over a chair. William spread financial documents across the conference table, walking me through the discrepancies he'd discovered. Each transaction was small enough to avoid scrutiny on its own: consultant fees to non-existent firms, overpayments to vendors that were then partially refunded to separate accounts, expense reimbursements for events that never occurred. "This isn't amateur work," I observed, recognizing the sophistication of the scheme. "Whoever did this understands corporate finance and knows exactly how to exploit the gaps in oversight." William nodded grimly. "That's what concerns me. It's someone with intimate knowledge of your father's business operations." The evidence was compelling, but circumstantial. We needed more before approaching my father with such explosive accusations against the woman he'd made the center of his world. "I need access to Vanessa's personal financial records," I said, already formulating a strategy. "And we need to keep this completely confidential until we have conclusive proof." William hesitated. "That might require legal means beyond my authority." I met his concerned gaze with steady determination. "I'm a partner at one of the top law firms in the country, and this is my father we're protecting. Leave the legal concerns to me." For the next week, I led a double life, corporate attorney by day, financial investigator by night. I assembled a small, trusted team at my firm under the guise of a confidential client matter. We obtained court orders for financial records, tracked money movements across multiple accounts, and built a comprehensive case that left no room for reasonable doubt. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The picture that emerged was worse than we'd initially suspected. Vanessa hadn't just been skimming from my father's business accounts. She'd been systematically liquidating assets and transferring funds to offshore accounts in preparation for a clean exit. Most damning of all, we discovered she'd secretly maintained contact with her ex-husband throughout her relationship with my father, a man with multiple fraud convictions who appeared to be the architect of the entire scheme. The final piece fell into place when we uncovered communications between Vanessa and her ex discussing the change in inheritance plans and the need to accelerate their timeline before the daughter ruins everything. Reading those words, clinical, calculating references to my father as nothing more than a source of wealth, ignited a cold fury unlike anything I'd experienced before. We have enough, I told my investigative team during our final briefing. Now comes the hard part. Confronting my father with the evidence would require perfect timing and careful handling. His health remained my primary concern, but allowing Vanessa to continue her predatory relationship with him was unthinkable. I arranged a private dinner at his home, requesting that Vanessa be absent, a rare occurrence that immediately raised his suspicions. "Is something wrong, Catherine?" he asked as we sat in his study before dinner, the familiar space with its leather-bound books and sailing memorabilia providing a false sense of security. "Dad, I need to show you something," I began gently. "And it's going to be difficult to hear." His expression grew wary, the lines around his eyes deepening. "This sounds serious." I nodded, steeling myself. "It is. It concerns Vanessa and your company finances." His posture stiffened immediately, defensiveness rising like a shield. "Catherine, if this is some attempt to drive a wedge—" I raised a hand to stop him. "Please, just look at what we found, then decide for yourself." I presented the evidence methodically, starting with the smaller discrepancies, before working toward the larger pattern of theft and betrayal. His face remained impassive throughout, only the whitening of his knuckles as he gripped his chair betraying his emotional response. When I finished, silence stretched between us, heavy with implications. Finally he spoke, his voice barely audible. "You're certain? There could be no mistake?" The question held a desperate hope that broke my heart. "We've verified everything through multiple sources." I confirmed gently. "I'm sorry, Dad." He rose abruptly, moving to the window that overlooked the carefully landscaped grounds where he and Vanessa often walked in the evenings. "She's due back in an hour," he said flatly. "From her spa weekend in Key West." The quotation marks were audible in his tone. "We discovered there was no spa, only meetings with her ex-husband to finalize their extraction plan." "What do you want to do?" I asked, giving him agency in a situation where he'd been so thoroughly manipulated. He turned, and I saw something shift in his expression, grief giving way to resolve, betrayal hardening into determination. "I want to hear her try to explain it," he said, a dangerous edge to his voice. "And then I want her out of my life." I moved to stand beside him, concerned about the stress this confrontation would place on his heart. "Let me handle this," I urged. "You don't need to be present for this conversation." He shook his head firmly. "I need to see her face when she realizes it's over. I need that to move forward." I recognized the stubborn set of his jaw, the same expression I'd seen in my own mirror countless times. The Williams family resilience, passing from generation to generation. "Then we do it together," I said, reaching for his hand. "As a family." The word carried new weight between us, reclaimed from those who had tried to exploit it for personal gain. He squeezed my hand in silent gratitude, and we began planning the confrontation that would end Vanessa's scheme once and for all. When her key turned in the lock an hour later, we were waiting in the living room, my father in his favorite armchair, me standing supportively behind him, and William positioned discreetly near the hallway that led to the bedrooms, where security waited out of sight. "George, why are all the lights on?" Vanessa called, her voice carrying that practiced lilt of affection. "I thought we were having a quiet dinner." Her words trailed off as she entered the room and registered my presence, her designer handbag slipping slightly on her arm. "Catherine, what a surprise!" "Hello, Vanessa," my father said, his voice carefully controlled. "We were just discussing some interesting financial discoveries." Her expression flickered momentarily before settling into practiced innocence. "Financial discoveries? Darling, you know I find all that business talk terribly boring." "I think you'll find this fascinating," I interjected, gesturing to the documents spread across the coffee table. "It's quite an impressive operation you've been running." Her eyes darted between us, calculating her options with the same precision she'd applied to emptying my father's accounts. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, setting down her bag and moving toward my father with practiced concern. "George, should you be getting this agitated? What about your heart?" The manipulation was transparent now that we knew what to look for. The deflection, the reminder of his vulnerability, the subtle positioning of herself as his protector. "My heart is fine," he replied coldly, "though I think it's been broken by someone I trusted." The directness of his statement visibly startled her. She took a step back, reassessing her strategy. "What exactly are you accusing me of?" I stepped forward, assuming the role I'd played in countless legal negotiations. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, for starters. I picked up a specific document from the table. "This is a record of transfers from my father's development accounts to shell companies you control. And this," I selected another paper, "is a transcript of your conversation with Michael Delaney, your ex-husband, discussing how to accelerate your theft before I ruined everything." The color drained from her face as she realized the extent of our investigation. "Those are private conversations," she stammered, abandoning the pretense of innocence. "You had no right to access my personal communications. Actually, as legal counsel for Williams Development, I had every right once we established probable cause for financial crimes." I countered smoothly. "The question now is whether my father presses criminal charges or merely ensures you leave with nothing more than you brought into this relationship." Her beautiful face contorted with sudden fury. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat, looking between us with undisguised hatred. "Daddy's little princess, swooping in to save the day. You have no idea what it's like to claw your way up from nothing, to do whatever it takes to secure your future." My father rose slowly from his chair, his expression more sad than angry. "I would have given you everything, Vanessa. All you had to do was love me." The simple statement hung in the air, devastating in its sincerity. For a moment, something like regret flickered across her face before hardening into defiance. "Love isn't enough in this world," she said bitterly. "I learned that lesson a long time ago." My father nodded as if her response confirmed something he'd suspected. "William," he called, not taking his eyes from Vanessa, "please escort Miss Chambers to collect her personal belongings. Security will assist and verify nothing else leaves this house." The clinical efficiency of his response seemed to shock Vanessa more than anger would have. "You can't just throw me out," she protested. "We've been together for 5 years. I have rights." "You have exactly the rights outlined in the cohabitation agreement you signed," I interrupted, professional to the end, "which explicitly states that evidence of financial impropriety nullifies any claims to property or support. My associate will provide you with the relevant documentation as you leave." William stepped forward, gesturing toward the hallway where 2 security officers now stood waiting. Vanessa's shoulders slumped momentarily before she straightened, gathering the remnants of her dignity. "This isn't over," she said, looking directly at me. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." I met her gaze steadily. "Actually, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. And if you or Michael contact my father again in any way, the evidence goes directly to the FBI." The threat wasn't empty. We had already prepared the case file, ready to submit if necessary. She turned to my father one last time, a calculating softness entering her expression. "George, please, 5 years together has to mean something." "Whatever she's told you, we can work through this." Her voice had transformed again, becoming the soothing, affectionate tone she'd perfected over years of manipulation. My father's response was quiet but firm. "Goodbye, Vanessa." The finality in those 2 words seemed to reach her when nothing else had. Without another word, she turned and followed William from the room, her stiletto heels clicking against the marble floors for the last time. When the front door closed behind them, my father sank back into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 65 years. I moved to sit beside him, concerned about the strain of the confrontation. "Are you okay?" I asked softly, watching for any signs of cardiac distress. He was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the doorway where Vanessa had disappeared. 5 years, he said finally. 5 years of my life with someone who was just waiting for me to die so she could take everything. The raw pain in his voice made my chest ache. "Not everything," I corrected gently. "She didn't get what matters most." He looked at me questioningly. "Your dignity, your company, your family." I took his hand, feeling the strength returning to his grip. "She underestimated both of us, Dad." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "She certainly underestimated you." Pride replaced some of the pain in his eyes. "Your mother would have been impressed by how you handled this." "I know I am." The compliment warmed me more than I expected, healing something that had been broken for too long. The following weeks were challenging as we implemented security measures, changed account access protocols, and reassured nervous investors. My father insisted on transparency with his executive team, turning the embezzlement scheme into a cautionary tale and opportunity to strengthen the company's financial controls. I took a brief leave of absence from my firm to help him reorganize, our professional collaboration revealing complementary strengths neither of us had fully appreciated before. His business acumen combined with my legal expertise created solutions neither of us would have developed alone. "You know you have a place here if you ever want it," he said one evening as we finished reviewing contract revisions in his home office. "Williams Development could use someone with your skills." The offer was genuine, free from the manipulation that had characterized his previous attempts to influence my career path. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "But I think we both know I'm where I belong." He nodded, understanding passing between us. "Your mother always said you had to find your own way." She was right, as usual. The mention of my mother no longer brought that sharp edge of grief, just a warm nostalgia we could finally share. "She would have loved seeing us work together like this," I observed. "Even under these circumstances." "Especially under these circumstances," he corrected with unexpected insight. "She always believed challenges revealed character." He shuffled the papers on his desk, organizing them with methodical precision. "I'm sorry it took something like this for me to see yours clearly." 3 months after Vanessa's departure, life had settled into a new pattern. My father's health continued to improve, as he focused on rebuilding not just his business but our relationship. I returned to my firm with a newfound confidence, the whispers about my family connections fading as my professional accomplishments spoke for themselves. Vanessa and her ex-husband had fled to South America, our evidence compelling enough to scare them into voluntary exile rather than risk prosecution. The money they'd managed to steal, substantial but far less than they'd planned, seemed a small price to pay for the lessons learned. Judge Wilson invited me to lunch to discuss a possible judicial clerkship recommendation for one of my associates. "You look different," she observed as we settled at our usual table. More at peace. I considered her assessment. "I am. Things with my father have changed. Fundamentally, not just superficially." She nodded approvingly. "Family reconciliations are rare and precious in my experience." "What made the difference?" The question gave me pause as I reflected on the journey of the past year. "Authenticity," I said finally, "on both sides. No more performance, no more conditional love. Just truth. Painful sometimes, but real." She smiled, the wisdom of decades of observing human behavior in her courtroom evident in her expression. The truth has a way of clearing the path forward, doesn't it? Even when it's initially devastating. I thought of Vanessa's betrayal, the pain it had caused my father, the unexpected healing it had ultimately facilitated between us. The hardest truth gave us our best chance. I agreed. It forced us to see each other clearly, maybe for the first time since my mother died. Judge Wilson raised her water glass in a subtle toast. To clarity, then, and to second chances. Later that evening, I met my father for our weekly dinner, now a standing tradition rather than an obligation. He'd chosen a small Italian restaurant we'd frequented as a family when I was a child, nostalgia informing his selection in the most healthy way. "I have something for you," he said after we'd ordered, reaching into his jacket pocket. He withdrew a small velvet box, sliding it across the table. "This isn't meant to replace what your mother gave you," he clarified quickly. "It's something new, from me." I opened the box to find a delicate gold compass on a chain, its face etched with intricate details. "It's beautiful," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. He reached across to open the compass, revealing an inscription inside the lid. "Find your true north. Love, Dad." I spent too many years trying to dictate your direction, he explained, his voice thick with emotion. This is my promise to support whatever path you choose, wherever it leads you. The symbolism wasn't subtle, but it was sincere, a tangible representation of how far we'd come. I fastened the compass around my neck, where it hung alongside my mother's pendant watch, past and present in harmony, each representing a parent who had ultimately wanted the best for me, even when their methods had been flawed. Thank you, I said simply, words inadequate for the moment. My father smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling with genuine happiness rather than the practiced charm he'd once relied on. You know, losing Vanessa was painful, he admitted. But gaining back my daughter, my real daughter, not some version I tried to create, that's been the greatest gift of my life. As we shared our meal, talking about everything from legal cases to childhood memories, I realized we'd created something precious from the wreckage of betrayal and misunderstanding. Not perfect, certainly, but authentic and strong in ways that mattered. My trust fund, the original source of conflict between us, had been fully reinstated, but it no longer carried the weight of conditional love or obligation. It represented instead my mother's wishes and my father's respect for my choices, financial security without emotional strings. The Catherine Williams Legal Defense Fund was thriving, providing representation to domestic violence survivors who might otherwise navigate the court system alone. My father had become an enthusiastic supporter, lending his business expertise to make the nonprofit financially sustainable. At my law firm, I'd been assigned to lead our pro bono initiatives alongside my corporate caseload, a balance that honored both my professional ambitions and my deeper values. Judge Wilson had become a trusted mentor, her own story of family estrangement and partial reconciliation, providing perspective on my journey. The compass my father had given me rested against my skin as we finished our meal, a reminder that finding one's true direction isn't a single decision but a constant process of realignment and recalibration. My path had been shaped by betrayal and reconciliation, by loss and recovery, by the courage to choose authenticity over security. What are you thinking about? My father asked as we walked together toward the parking lot, the warm evening air carrying the scent of jasmine. I considered the question, a smile tugging at my lips. I'm thinking that sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you to what you actually need. He nodded, understanding immediately. Your mother used to say something similar, that life's detours often lead to the most meaningful destinations. He offered his arm, an old-fashioned gesture that bridged the years between us. I'm glad this particular detour led us here. As we reached our cars, he pulled me into an unexpected hug, not the perfunctory embrace of social obligation, but the genuine connection of family who had weathered storms together and emerged stronger. I'm proud of you, Catherine, he said softly, not for what you've achieved, but for who you are. The words washed over me, like healing rain, soothing wounds I hadn't realized still needed tending. I'm proud of us, I replied, meaning it completely. We had transformed a relationship built on conditions and expectations into one founded on mutual respect and genuine love, a journey far more valuable than any trust fund. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.